everyone. Today we're going to be talking about sleep paralysis and night terrors. Have you ever been sleeping and suddenly you felt yourself slowly waking up when right before you open your eyes you feel this pressure on your body and you can't move? It's almost like a feeling of being paralyzed. Or you think you're awake and then you see a shadow in the corner, or maybe you have even woken up screaming before, or crying, or arms moving, waving in the air. Well, I'm here to tell you that you more than likely experienced either sleep paralysis or a night terror. There is a difference between the two, and so today we're going to be talking about that. In the article, The Nightmare Disorder and Isolated Sleep Paralysis, which was published on November 23rd, 2020, and written by Amber Stefani along with Bridget Hovel, they stated, and I quote, that isolated sleep paralysis is experienced in at least once by up to 40% of the general population. This shows that anyone can experience any of this, especially sleep paralysis. However, how many people have been able to distinguish what they experienced truly was sleep paralysis or a night terror? I have personally experienced both, but for quite some time, I didn't know exactly which one it was as it was happening. Now that I've done my research, I'm able to distinguish in between the two. So today, I will be speaking about the key differences between sleep paralysis and night terrors. First, I'm going to go over what sleep paralysis is and provide an example of what one might see while experiencing this. And secondly, I will address night terrors and what they consist of. Lastly, I will review key differences and how to make the proper distinction between the two. Now, let's get into the first sleep disorder, sleep paralysis. According to a publication by the American Association of Sleep Medicine, sleep paralysis occurs as you're falling asleep, during your sleep, and as you are waking up. You might also experience complete immobility. It's, again, almost like a feeling of being paralyzed. This might even cause scary hallucinations or hearing scary sounds. And the scary part about this is that you are aware that this is all happening. So we are going to look over now to the slideshow. And here are a few examples of sleep paralysis. So as I mentioned, you might experience the inability to move or speak, sensation of pressure, which is that feeling on top of you. Sensation of pressure. Hallucinations, this might be shadows that you're seeing in the corner, shadows that you might see next to you, on top of you, it's very common. Or a rapid heart rate, because again, you're aware that this is happening as it's happening. Or the feeling of being watched, as we mentioned, those shadows that you might see in the corners. So now that we have a better understanding of sleep paralysis, which again, here are a few examples of what you might experience, what you might see, what you might feel. So now we're going to turn our attention over to night terrors. On January 14th, 2025, the Mayo Clinic published an overview of what night terrors are. And I quote, sleep terrors are times of screaming or crying, intense fear, and sometimes waving arms and legs when not fully awake, close quote. As opposed to sleep paralysis, night terrors usually occur during the beginning of your sleep, and you are also able to move and wake up. But the scary part about this one is that you might not even remember what just happened. In my experience with night terrors, I never saw anything as far as shadows or hallucinations, so I've come to the conclusion that hallucinations are not directly associated with this particular sleep disorder. So, we're going to review again a little bit about sleep terrors. This is usually more common in children, but it can happen to adults as well. And again, it usually happens in the beginning, so after 2 to 3 hours of going into sleep, child is confused and frightened, often crying and screaming, which is a very common symptom in night terrors. And the child usually has sweating or increased heart rate as well as increased breathing. And as I mentioned, they usually do not remember the event the next day. So to summarize what I have just gone over, the key differences between these two sleep disorders are when they occur, what you might see, or what you might hear. Here's a few other examples. So we discussed when sleep paralysis can occur, which can be during your sleep beginning or as you're waking up. Meanwhile, night terrors are only in the beginning of your sleep. I have also given examples of what someone might experience when going through these disorders. As someone who has experienced both of these, it has helped to know what both are, and being able to distinguish between the two has helped for me to not be as scared and to remain calm, especially when experiencing sleep paralysis, as for me personally, it has been the worst one to experience. And this can be helpful to anyone who has experienced the same and simply didn't know what they were going through. I am optimistic that after hearing this presentation, you can walk away with the facts and the differences between sleep paralysis and night terrors and how to distinguish in between the two.